The most expensive birthday gift I ever received was also the deadliest. My son Brad calculated the perfect dose of ricin to kill his 62-year-old father, mixed it into premium bourbon, and delivered it anonymously to my door. His only mistake? Assuming I still drank alcohol. Instead, I gave it to Glenn and watched in horror as my generous gesture nearly killed an innocent man. Before I continue, take a guess. How will the dad fight back? Comment your guess.
October 15th. My 62nd birthday arrived like most days in Denver. Crisp air, golden aspen leaves dancing outside my kitchen window, and the kind of silence that only comes when you live alone. I'd been up since 5:30, old habits from my construction days, brewing coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The package sat on my front porch like it had been waiting all night. No delivery truck in sight, no neighbor to ask about it. Just a brown cardboard box, unmarked except for my name written in block letters across the top. Maddox Steel. Nothing more. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a bottle that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Blanton's single-barrel bourbon, the kind with the little horse and jockey on top. Limited edition, the label said. The kind of whiskey you save for special occasions or give to someone you want to impress. But it was the card that made me pause. Tucked against the bottle was a small white envelope, my name written across it in those same block letters. I opened it carefully, the way you handle something delicate. Happy birthday, in blue ink.
No signature, no name, just 2 words in handwriting that I almost recognized. Almost. The slant was exactly like my son Brad's. The downstrokes were just as heavy, but there was something forced about it, like someone was trying to hide their real handwriting, or maybe trying too hard to look different. I set the card on the counter next to the bottle and stared at both. Brad and I hadn't spoken in almost 2 years, not since the argument about his mounting debts and my refusal to bail him out again. 2 years of silence that had grown so comfortable I'd stopped expecting it to change. The bourbon was beautiful, really, the kind of gift that showed thought, expense, care. But looking at it only reminded me why I couldn't enjoy it. 3 years ago, after my heart attack, Dr. Martinez had been clear as crystal about my new reality. No alcohol, no exceptions. The medication I took daily didn't mix well with whiskey, and my damaged heart couldn't handle the stress. That's when I thought of Glenn. Glenn Martinez, Brad's father-in-law, living alone since his wife Rosa passed last spring. Glenn had always been kind to me, even during the worst of the family tensions. He'd been an electrician for 40 years, had stories that could make you laugh until your sides hurt, and he genuinely appreciated good whiskey. More than that, he'd been lonely since Rosa died, and I knew he'd enjoy not just the bourbon, but the gesture behind it. The decision felt right. If this mysterious gift was going to sit unopened in my house, serving as nothing more than a reminder of what I couldn't have, then what was the point? Glenn would appreciate it properly, maybe share it with friends, give it the respect it deserved. 20 minutes later, I was in my truck with the bourbon buckled into the passenger seat, driving through the suburbs toward Glenn's house on Maple Street. The morning sun painted everything golden, the way October light does in Colorado, making even the ordinary look special. I found myself humming along to an old country song on the radio, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Sometimes, unexpected gifts come into your life exactly when you need them, I thought. Not for you necessarily, but to remind you that you can still give joy to others. Glenn's house came into view, a modest ranch-style home with a well-maintained yard and an American flag hanging from the front porch. I could see his silhouette through the kitchen window, probably having his morning coffee, just like I'd been doing an hour ago. I had no idea I was about to change both our lives forever. Glenn's face lit up when he opened the door, the way it always did when he saw me. Even after 2 years of family silence between Brad and me, Glenn had never let that affect our friendship. "Maddox, what brings you by this early?" He stepped back, gesturing me inside with the natural hospitality that made him such good company. "Happy birthday to me," I said, holding up the bourbon. "Got this as a gift, but you know I can't touch the stuff anymore. Thought you might appreciate it more than my kitchen cabinet would."
His eyes widened as he took in the bottle. Glenn knew his whiskey, had been collecting premium bottles since before I knew the difference between bourbon and scotch. He handled the Blantons like it was made of crystal. "Maddox, this is something special. You sure you want to give this away?" He turned the bottle carefully, examining the label, the wax seal, the little horse and jockey perched on top. "This bottle probably cost more than my electric bill." "That's exactly why it should go to someone who'll enjoy it properly," I said, settling into the familiar comfort of his kitchen.
The place still smelled like Rose's coffee, still had her ceramic roosters lined up on the windowsill. Besides, what are friends for? Glenn poured us both coffee from the pot that seemed to be perpetually brewing on his counter. His hands were steady, still strong despite his 70 years, still showing the calluses from decades of electrical work. "You know, I was just thinking about Rosa this morning," he said, sitting across from me at the small kitchen table. "She always said the best gifts are the ones you share. This bourbon, it's the kind of thing she would have saved for a special occasion that never quite came." "So don't save it," I said. "Make tonight the special occasion." He smiled, that genuine warmth that had made him such a good father-in-law, even when family dynamics got complicated. "You know what? I think I will. I've got that new book I've been meaning to read, and autumn evenings are perfect for sipping something this fine." We talked for another 20 minutes about ordinary things: his garden, my latest doctor's appointment, the Broncos' disappointing season. Normal conversation between two men who'd found friendship despite the messy circumstances that brought us together. When I stood to leave, Glenn walked me to the door, still holding the bourbon like it was treasure. "Thank you, Maddox. Really, it's been too quiet around here since." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We both knew how silence could fill a house after someone you love is gone. "Enjoy it," I said, meaning it, "and call me tomorrow. Let me know how it tastes." "I will," he promised, already examining the bottle again. "I'm thinking I'll open it around 8, maybe have a glass with dinner. This deserves to be savored properly." Driving home, I felt that particular satisfaction that comes from doing something right. Glenn would appreciate that bourbon in ways I never could. He'd taste the craftsmanship, understand the complexity, maybe even share a glass with a neighbor who stopped by. The radio played softly as I navigated the familiar streets back to my house. The October sun was climbing higher, burning off the morning chill, promising one of those perfect Colorado days that make you forget winter's coming. I had no way of knowing that by midnight, Glenn would be fighting for his life. The phone's shrill ring cut through my sleep like a blade. I fumbled for it in the darkness, squinting at the clock. 12:43 a.m. Nothing good ever happened at 12:43 in the morning. "Hello?" My voice came out rough, thick with interrupted sleep. "Maddox? Maddox, it's Nuria." Glenn's daughter sounded like she was drowning. "Something's wrong with Dad. Something's really wrong." I sat up fast, my heart doing that irregular flutter it sometimes did when stress hit. "What happened?" He can't stop throwing up. He's burning up with fever, but he's shaking like he's freezing. His speech is all slurred, and," her voice broke, "Maddox, I think he's dying." "Where are you?" "We're at Denver General. The ambulance just brought him in. He was on his kitchen floor when I found him. I went to check on him because he didn't answer his phone earlier, and," she sobbed, "there was vomit everywhere. He could barely tell me his name." I was already pulling on clothes, cradling the phone between my shoulder and ear. "I'm on my way. How long ago did this start?" "I don't know. Maybe an hour? 2 hours? He was fine when I called him at dinner time." We talked about his day, normal stuff. Then when I tried calling around 10:30, he didn't answer. I got worried and drove over. The drive to Denver General felt like it took hours instead of 20 minutes. Every red light was an eternity, every turn a reminder that Glenn was fighting for something I couldn't help him with. I kept thinking about how happy he'd looked holding that bourbon bottle, how he'd promised to savor it properly. The hospital emergency room buzzed with the controlled chaos of midnight medical drama. I found Maria in the waiting area, her face streaked with tears, her hands shaking as she gripped a paper coffee cup. "Any news?" I asked, settling beside her on the uncomfortable plastic chairs. "They're still running tests. They pumped his stomach, got a lot of fluid out. The doctor said his symptoms look like some kind of severe poisoning, but they don't know what caused it yet." Through the small window in the emergency room doors, I could see Glenn on a hospital bed, surrounded by machines and medical staff. IVs ran into both arms, monitors beeped with urgent rhythms, and his face looked gray under the harsh fluorescent lights. What did he eat today?
Did he mention anything unusual? Just his normal stuff. Oatmeal for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch. He was excited about... Maria paused, wiping her eyes. He was excited about trying that bourbon you gave him. He called me around 7, said he was going to have a glass with his dinner. My stomach dropped. The bourbon, the anonymous gift, the timing. Dr. Sarah Kim appeared, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift, her expression grave. "Are you family?" "I'm a close friend," I said. "This is his daughter, Maria. How is he?" "Mr. Martinez is in critical condition. His body is showing signs of severe toxic exposure. We're doing everything we can to stabilize him, but the next few hours will be crucial." "Toxic exposure?" Maria's voice was barely a whisper. "His symptoms suggest he ingested something highly poisonous. We're running comprehensive tests to identify the substance. In the meantime, we need to know everything he consumed in the last 12 hours. I felt the words forming in my throat before I could stop them. "Doctor, he drank some bourbon tonight. Bourbon I gave him as a gift."
"Doctor, I think the bourbon might be the problem." Dr. Kim turned back to me, her attention sharpening. "What makes you say that?" "It was anonymous, left on my porch this morning with no return address, no explanation, just a card that said, 'Happy Birthday' in handwriting I almost recognized, but couldn't quite place." Maria looked at me with growing alarm. "You think someone poisoned the bourbon?" "I think someone meant for me to drink it," I said quietly. "I only gave it to your father because I can't have alcohol anymore." Dr. Kim nodded grimly. "We'll need to test the remaining bourbon immediately. Maria, can you take us to your father's house to secure the bottle?" "Of course," Maria whispered. "I'm calling the police," I said, pulling out my phone. The 911 operator was efficient. "Possible poisoning case at Denver General Hospital. Anonymous gift. Victim in critical condition." They'd send a detective right away. Detective Sarah Chen arrived 20 minutes later, moving through the emergency room with quiet authority. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, wearing a wrinkled blazer that suggested she'd been called away from home. "Mr. Steele, I'm Detective Chen. Tell me about this bourbon." I explained everything quickly. The package on my porch, the expensive bottle, the anonymous card with familiar but somehow wrong handwriting. How I'd given it to Glenn because my heart medication prevented me from drinking. "This handwriting," Detective Chen said, pen poised over her notepad, "you said it looked familiar. Like someone I knew, but trying to write differently. Disguised, maybe. Any idea who might want to harm you?" The question I'd been dreading. "My son and I haven't spoken in almost 2 years. We had a falling out over his gambling debts. But I can't believe Brad would actually..." "Brad Steele? He's family to Mr. Martinez?" "He's married to Maria," I said, gesturing toward Glenn's daughter. Detective Chen's pen stopped moving. "Would your son know about your medical restrictions, that you can't drink alcohol?" "No," I said quietly. "I never told him about the heart attack. We weren't speaking when it happened, and I didn't want him to think I was trying to get his sympathy or guilt him into coming back." Detective Chen's pen started moving again. "So as far as he knows, you still drink alcohol? As far as he knows, I'd probably enjoy a good bottle of bourbon." The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Maria made a small choking sound. "You think Brad tried to poison his own father?" "I don't think anything yet," Detective Chen said evenly, "but we're going to find out." Dr. Kim reappeared. "Detective, preliminary tests confirm a foreign substance in the patient's system, something that definitely doesn't belong in bourbon. How long before you know what it is?" "A few hours for basic toxicology, maybe longer if it's something unusual." Detective Chen closed her notepad and handed me her card. "Mr. Steele, go home, get some rest. I'll need you at the station tomorrow for a formal statement. And don't touch anything else that might have come from the same source.
As she walked away, already on her phone, I stared through the window at Glenn's still form surrounded by machines. Someone had wanted me in that bed instead of him. Someone had planned my death and wrapped it up like a birthday present, counting on the fact that I'd drink it. They couldn't have known I'd give it away. Couldn't have known that my damaged heart had already taken alcohol off the table 3 years ago. The worst part was knowing exactly who had access to my address, who knew my birthday, who might think an expensive bottle of bourbon was exactly the kind of gift I'd appreciate. The worst part was that it all pointed to my own son.
The Denver Police Department felt colder in daylight than it had in my sleepless imagination. Detective Chen met me at 9 a.m. sharp, leading me through a maze of desks to a small interview room that smelled like burnt coffee and fluorescent anxiety. "How's Glenn?" she asked, settling across from me with a fresh notepad. "Still critical but stable. Maria hasn't left his side." I'd called the hospital twice before coming here, needing proof Glenn was still fighting. "Good. Now, let's go through everything again, step by step." Her pen clicked ready. "Start with the package." I described finding the box, the expensive bourbon, the careful way it had been wrapped. When I mentioned the card, she leaned forward. "This handwriting that looked familiar, can you be more specific?" "Like someone trying to disguise their natural style. Too careful, too deliberate. But the letter formations reminded me of Brad's writing, just altered somehow." "You'd recognize your son's handwriting?" "Even after 2 years of silence, yes." She made notes. "Tell me about this falling out. You mentioned gambling deaths." The old weight settled in my chest. Black Hawk Casino.
He kept getting in deeper, asking for money to get even. I helped him a few times with smaller amounts, but it kept getting worse. When I finally said no more, I shook my head. That's when we stopped talking. "How much money are we talking about?" "I don't know the full extent. Could be tens of thousands, maybe more. He never told me the real numbers, just kept saying he needed one more chance to fix everything." Detective Chen wrote steadily. "Mr. Steele, do you have life insurance?" The question felt like stepping off a cliff. "Yes, a policy I set up years ago when I retired. I think it's around $200,000. Brad's the beneficiary." Something shifted in Detective Chen's expression, professional interest sharpening into focus. "He knows about this policy?" "I told him when I set it up 5 years ago. Wanted him to know he'd be taken care of." "And as far as he knows, you still enjoy drinking bourbon?" "As far as he knows, an expensive bottle would be the perfect birthday gift." She wrote steadily for a moment. "We're going to need handwriting samples for comparison. The card, the envelope, everything will be analyzed. You're officially investigating Brad. I'm investigating everyone who had motive and opportunity." She closed the notepad. "The bourbon is being processed for prints and toxins. Results this afternoon. What should I do in the meantime? Be careful. Don't accept packages, don't eat or drink anything you haven't prepared yourself. Someone wanted you dead yesterday, and they're going to realize their plan failed. You think he'll try again? I think desperate people do desperate things, and $200,000 in debt makes people very desperate." Walking to my truck, I felt the weight of being watched, hunted. The morning sun felt too bright, the parking lot too open. Somewhere out there, someone knew I was supposed to be dead. Someone was probably wondering why Glenn Martinez was in the hospital instead of Maddox Steele. And if Detective Chen was right about the handwriting, about the motive, about everything pointing in one terrible direction, then that someone was the boy I'd taught to ride a bicycle, the young man I'd walked down the aisle at his wedding. The son who needed me dead to solve his problems. Detective Chen's call came at 3:15 that afternoon, interrupting my third cup of untouched coffee. Everything felt suspect now, even things I'd prepared myself. "Mr. Steele, we have the lab results." Her tone carried the weight of finality. Professional, careful, the voice of someone about to change everything. What did they find? Ricin, highly concentrated, mixed directly into the bourbon, enough to kill a healthy adult within hours. The word hit me like a physical blow.
Ricin. I'd heard it before in news stories, knew it was deadly, but hearing it connected to that bottle made my hands shake. How certain are you? 100%. The lab ran multiple tests. This wasn't accidental, Mr. Steele. Someone specifically wanted you dead. I sank into my kitchen chair. Glenn's going to survive this. There's no antidote for ricin, but he got medical attention quickly and didn't consume the full dose. The next 24 hours are critical, but his chances are good. What happens now? Now this becomes attempted murder.
We'll need more detailed statements, and we'll be interviewing anyone with potential motive or access, including Brad. Especially Brad. She paused. Mr. Steele, I need you to think about anyone else who might know your address, your routines, who might benefit from your death. After she hung up, I stared at my phone. Someone had obtained ricin, mixed it into expensive bourbon, and delivered it like a birthday present. This wasn't impulse or anger. This was calculated, premeditated murder. The anonymous handwriting suddenly felt more sinister. Someone disguising their natural writing because they knew I'd recognize it. Someone who knew me well enough to think bourbon would be the perfect gift. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Hope you enjoyed your birthday gift. Ice water flooded my veins. I read it 3 times before it fully registered. Someone knew their plan had failed. Someone was taunting me about surviving. I called Detective Chen immediately. I just got a text from an unknown number. Hope you enjoyed your birthday gift. Don't respond. Don't delete it. We're tracing that number now. I heard her grabbing keys. I'm sending a patrol car to your house. Don't leave. Don't answer the door for strangers. They're coming for me. Someone just made a big mistake. Threatening you by text gives us evidence we didn't have, but it also means they're not finished. After she hung up, I walked through my house checking locks, closing blinds. The bourbon bottle was gone, sitting in some police lab, but its presence haunted my kitchen like a ghost. Someone had put careful thought into killing me. Now that their first attempt had failed, they were bold enough to mock me about it. All the evidence pointed in one direction. The person who knew my address, might remember my birthday, had financial problems and stood to inherit from my death. The person who thought I still drank bourbon because I'd hidden my heart condition from him. My son was trying to kill me, and now he knew his first attempt had failed. The patrol car outside my house gave me enough courage to make the calls I'd been avoiding for 2 years. If Brad was trying to kill me, I needed to understand exactly how desperate he'd become. I started with his landlord, Pete Kowalski, a veteran I'd met at Brad's wedding. Pete had always struck me as straight-talking, the kind of man who'd give honest answers. Maddox Steele? Haven't heard from you in ages. How's retirement treating you? Could be better, Pete. I need to ask about Brad. Is he keeping up with his rent? The long pause told me everything. Maddox, I probably shouldn't say this, but he's 3 months behind. Been making excuses, promising to catch up. I've been patient because of the family connection. How much does he owe? $4,800, and that's just rent. My stomach dropped. I thanked Pete and tried calling Brad directly. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. Brad, it's Dad. We need to talk. Call me back. He didn't. 2 days later, I drove to his apartment complex in Aurora. His car was there, but no one answered my knocking. A neighbor, an elderly woman with kind eyes, approached me. You looking for Brad? He's been avoiding everyone lately. Lots of official-looking people coming around asking for him. Debt collectors? That'd be my guess. He used to be friendly, always said hello. Now he just hurries inside like he's afraid of his own shadow. I tried calling again from his parking lot. This time he answered, but his voice sounded strained, suspicious. What do you want? To talk, face to face. I'm outside your apartment. I can't. I'm busy. Brad, I know about the rent. I know you're in trouble. You don't know anything. His voice cracked. Just leave me alone. How much do you owe the casino? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. More than I can ever pay back. How much? 200,000. Maybe more. I stopped counting. The number hit me like a physical blow.
$200,000. No wonder he was hiding from debt collectors. No wonder he looked like a hunted man. Brad, we can figure this out. There are programs, debt counseling. There's no figuring this out. His voice exploded through the phone. You think I haven't tried everything? You think I haven't looked at every option? There's no way out of this hole, Dad. No way. There's always a way. Not for me. Not anymore. The line went dead. I sat in my truck outside his building, staring at my phone. $200,000 in gambling debt. That kind of money could destroy a life, drive someone to desperate measures. That kind of debt could make a son look at his father's life insurance policy and see it as the only solution to an impossible problem. I called Detective Chen and told her what I'd learned. $200,000, she repeated. That's serious money. That's the kind of debt that makes people do things they never thought they were capable of. He sounded desperate, hopeless. Desperate enough to poison his own father? I thought about Brad's voice on the phone, the way he'd said there was no way out. Maybe. God help me, maybe. We're going to need to bring him in for questioning. But first, I want you to check something. You mentioned life insurance. Can you verify the exact amount and when it was last updated? That night, I went through my insurance documents with a growing sense of dread. What I found confirmed my worst fears, but I'd save that revelation for tomorrow's conversation with Detective Chen. Tonight, I just sat in my kitchen, thinking about the boy who used to climb into my lap to hear bedtime stories, and wondering when exactly he'd started seeing me as worth more dead than alive. The insurance documents were buried in my filing cabinet, underneath tax returns and utility bills I'd been meaning to organize. I spread them across my kitchen table under the harsh fluorescent light, dreading what I might find. The original policy from 5 years ago was straightforward. $200,000, Brad as beneficiary, standard terms. But there was another document underneath, one I didn't remember signing. Policy amendment, dated 8 months ago. Benefit increase to $500,000. My signature was at the bottom, but something felt wrong about it. The letters looked like mine, but they were too careful, too deliberate, like someone had practiced writing my name until they got it right. I compared it to my signature on other documents. The difference was subtle but unmistakable. This wasn't my handwriting. My hands shook as I reached for my phone to call Detective Chen. I found something, I said when she answered. My life insurance policy was increased to $500,000 8 months ago. I never authorized that change. Are you certain? The signature looks like mine, but it's not. Someone forged it. Who would have access to your personal information? Social security number? Policy details? Signature samples? The answer sat heavy in my chest. Brad is my son. He's had access to my personal documents over the years. Tax returns, bank statements, insurance papers. When we were still talking, I trusted him with that information. We're going to need those documents as evidence. Can you bring them to the station? I'll be there in an hour. As I gathered the papers, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. You can't hide forever. This time, I didn't call Detective Chen immediately. I stared at the message, feeling the weight of being hunted by my own son. He'd forged my signature to increase my life insurance, then tried to kill me to collect it. When that failed, he was taunting me, threatening me. The boy I'd taught to ride a bicycle had become someone I didn't recognize. At the police station, Detective Chen examined the insurance documents with a magnifying glass. This is definitely forgery, she said. The signature's close, but there are inconsistencies in the pressure and flow. We'll have our handwriting expert confirm it. So now you have motive and method. We have a strong case building. $200,000 in gambling debt, forged documents increasing your life insurance, ricin in the Bourbon, threatening text messages. She looked up at me. Mr. Steele, we're going to arrest your son. The words I'd been both expecting and dreading. When? Tomorrow morning. We'll pick him up at his apartment. I want you somewhere safe when that happens. Do you have family you can stay with? Glenn's still in the hospital. Maria's with him. I don't have anyone else.
Then we'll keep the patrol car outside your house until Brad's in custody. Driving home, I thought about the last normal conversation Brad and I had shared. It was about baseball, I think, or maybe the weather. Something ordinary, forgettable. If I'd known it would be our last real conversation as father and son, I would have said something different. I would have told him I loved him, even when he made mistakes. I would have told him there was always another way, always hope, always a chance to start over. But it was too late for that now.
Tomorrow, my son would be arrested for trying to murder me, and the worst part was knowing that he probably deserved it.
Detective Chen called at 6 a.m., her voice sharp with purpose. "We're moving on your son today. I wanted you to know before it happens." I'd been awake since 4, staring at the ceiling, thinking about thunderstorms and a little boy who used to seek comfort in my arms. What's the plan? Meeting with Judge Harrison in an hour for the search warrant. With the forged insurance documents, ricin, threatening texts, and gambling debts, we have probable cause. 2 hours later, she called again. "We have the warrant. Judge Harrison signed off after reviewing all the evidence. I'm assembling the team now." What kind of team? Officer Martinez will lead the search. 15 years experience in evidence collection. Officer Johnson handles digital forensics, computers, phones, online activity. If Brad researched ricin or purchased it online, we'll find it. My stomach tightened. When? 10 a.m. We're meeting at the station first to coordinate. "Maddox, I need you to stay away from his apartment. Don't drive by, don't try to see what's happening." What if he runs? We'll have backup units. This is a felony arrest for attempted murder.
He's not walking away from this. After she hung up, I sat with untouched coffee, counting down the hours. At 10 a.m., my son would be in handcuffs. Police would search his life for evidence he'd tried to kill me. Part of me wanted to warn him, but I knew that would make me complicit in his crimes. At 9:30, Detective Chen called again. "Heading out now. Martinez has the warrant. Johnson has the forensics equipment. Backup units are standing by. Be careful." "We will. I'll call when it's over." 10 a.m. came and went. 10:15, 10:30. At 10:45, my phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number. "They're here." My blood turned cold. Brad was texting me while police were at his door. 30 seconds later, this isn't over. Then silence. I stared at my phone, waiting for Detective Chen to call, waiting to hear my son was in custody, waiting for this nightmare to move toward its inevitable conclusion in a courtroom where I'd testify against the boy I'd once taught to ride a bicycle. The boy who'd grown into a man desperate enough to poison his own father. Detective Chen's call came at 11:20, her voice sharp with controlled satisfaction. "We got him. Brad's in custody." I gripped the phone tighter. "What did you find?" Officer Johnson hit the jackpot on his laptop. Browser history showing searches for ricin extraction from castor beans, lethal dosage calculations, and untraceable poison methods. The searches started 3 weeks before your birthday. My stomach dropped. 3 weeks of planning my murder. "There's more," Detective Chen continued. "Officer Martinez found a notebook filled with handwriting practice. Pages of someone trying to copy your signature, practicing block letters, working on disguising their natural writing." The image burned in my mind. Brad at his kitchen table, methodically practicing my signature, preparing to forge documents that would profit from my death. How did he react when you arrested him? Complete silence, except for demanding a lawyer. Officer Martinez read him his rights, cuffed him, and we transported him downtown. No resistance, but no cooperation either. What charges? Attempted murder in the first degree. The DA will likely add fraud for the insurance forgery and criminal threatening for the text messages. This is serious, Maddox. Life sentence serious. After she hung up, I called Maria at the hospital. "Maddox, I heard. The police called to inform us about Brad's arrest. Is it really true?" "The evidence is pretty clear." How do I tell Dad that his son-in-law tried to kill you both? Focus on Glenn's recovery first. How is he? Much better. The doctors say he'll make a full recovery. But Maddox, what happens to our family now? The kids barely know their grandfather, and now their father's in jail for trying to murder him. I had no answer for that. How do you rebuild a family after something like this? That evening, I drove to the hospital. Glenn was sitting up, looking more like himself, though still pale and tired. "Maddox," he said when I walked in, "Maria told me everything. I can't wrap my head around it." "I'm sorry you got dragged into this, Glenn." "Don't apologize. You had no way of knowing." He studied my face. "How are you holding up?" "I keep thinking about the boy he used to be. When did he become someone capable of this?" Desperation changes people. 200,000 in debt? That's enough to make anyone consider terrible things. But not everyone would actually do it. Glenn nodded slowly. No, not everyone would cross that line. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Two men who'd survived something that should have killed us both. "The worst part," I said finally, "is knowing he calculated exactly how much poison it would take to kill me. He researched my weight, my age, my medical conditions I didn't even know he knew about. He didn't know about your heart condition, though. That's what saved you." "That's what saved you," I corrected. "I was never the target who was supposed to survive this." Driving home from the hospital, I thought about the notebook Detective Chen had described. Pages and pages of Brad practicing to forge my signature. The methodical preparation, the cold calculation. My son hadn't just tried to kill me in a moment of desperation. He'd planned it carefully, researched it thoroughly, and executed it with precision. The only thing he hadn't planned for was a father who would give away a gift he couldn't use himself. Detective Chen called me 2 days after Brad's arrest. "Maddox, we need to interview Maria. We found text messages between her and Brad discussing solutions to their money problems, references to insurance. She may have known more than she's admitted." My heart sank. "You think Maria was involved?" "I think she's caught between protecting her husband and her father. We'll find out tomorrow." An hour later, Maria called, her voice shaking. "Maddox, the police want to interview me. They think I knew about Brad's plan." "Did you?" The silence stretched endlessly. "Maria?" "Brad kept talking about finding a way to get insurance money," she whispered. "He said it would solve everything, that no one would get hurt. I thought he meant fraud, not murder." "When did you start suspecting?" "When Dad got sick. When you mentioned the bourbon. The timing, Brad's strange behavior, the way he kept asking if you'd tried it yet." She sobbed. "I should have said something sooner." "What are you going to do?" "Detective Chen said if I cooperate, tell them everything, they might not charge me as an accessory. If I don't," she paused, "my children could lose both parents. But testifying means sending my husband to prison." "I know." Her voice hardened. "But Brad stopped being my husband when he put poison in that bottle. The man I married wouldn't have tried to kill his own father. This won't be easy. Dad almost died, Maddox. He almost died because I was too scared to face what I suspected. I won't make that mistake again." The next morning, Detective Chen called with an update. "Maria came in voluntarily. She's telling us everything. Conversations about the insurance money, Brad's research on your daily routines, his increasing desperation about the debts. How much did she know? Enough to be suspicious, not enough to prevent it. She thought Brad was planning insurance fraud, not murder. When she realized the truth, she was too scared to act. Will you charge her? The DA is reviewing her cooperation. If she testifies truthfully at trial, she'll likely face minimal charges, probably probation and community service. And Brad? With Maria's testimony, we have a stronger case. She can testify about his state of mind, his financial desperation, his knowledge of your insurance policy. It helps establish premeditation." That evening, Maria called me one more time.
I wanted you to know I'm going to testify against Brad. For Dad, for you, for what's right. I know this is hard. The hardest part is explaining to my children why Daddy tried to hurt Grandpa Maddox and Grandpa Glenn. But they deserve the truth, even if it's ugly. Tomorrow, the case against my son would get stronger, and it would be his own wife providing the ammunition.
Detective Chen's call came with news that changed everything. Maria's full confession is devastating for Brad's case. She admitted knowing about the bourbon from the beginning. Knowing what exactly? Brad told her he was sending you a birthday surprise that would solve their money problems permanently. He said it would make you dependent on them and convince you to help with their debts. She believed that? She says Brad convinced her it would just make you sick enough to need their care, not kill you. When Glenn got poisoned instead, Brad called her in a panic, saying the wrong person drank it. My blood chilled. So he knew Glenn was dying because of his plan. Yes, and instead of calling for help, he told Maria to stay quiet and hope for the best. That's when she realized the true scope of what they'd done. What's her deal with the DA? Accessory after the fact. 3 years probation, community service, no jail time if she testifies fully. That evening, Maria called me one final time.
Maddox, I need to tell you something Brad said when he realized you'd given the bourbon away. What? He said, now we'll never get out of this mess. The old man was supposed to drink it himself. He wasn't upset that someone got hurt. He was angry that his plan failed. The coldness in those words hit me like a physical blow. There's more, Maria continued. Brad had been practicing your signature for months, not weeks. He showed me pages of practice sheets, proud of how well he could forge your name. He called it preparation for our future security. How long had he been planning this? Since last Christmas, when you didn't help with the casino debt. He said you were sitting on money while your own son suffered, that you deserved what was coming. And you went along with it? I was scared, Maddox, scared of losing our house, scared of what the casino people would do to Brad. I convinced myself he was just talking, that he'd never actually go through with it. But when the bourbon arrived, I knew, deep down I knew it wasn't just talk anymore, and I did nothing to stop it. Her voice broke completely.
Tomorrow, I'll testify that my husband spent months planning to murder his father, that he forged documents to profit from it, and that when an innocent man nearly died instead, his only concern was that his plan had failed. That takes courage, Maria. No, Maddox. Courage would have been stopping him before Glenn ended up in the hospital. This is just me finally doing what I should have done months ago. After she hung up, I realized the full scope of Brad's betrayal. This wasn't desperation or a moment of weakness. This was months of calculated planning, practice, and preparation to murder his own father. And his wife would be the one to tell the world exactly how cold-blooded it had been. 3 weeks before trial, District Attorney Rebecca Martinez called to prepare me. Mr. Steele, testifying against your son won't be easy. The defense will try to paint you as an unloving father who drove Brad to desperation. What do you need from me? Complete honesty about your relationship, the money issues, why you stopped helping him. The jury needs to understand that setting boundaries doesn't justify murder. She handed me a thick evidence folder. Review these, but prepare yourself. Brad's handwriting practice, his internet searches, it's going to be painful. That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table. The photos of Brad's notebook were devastating. Pages of my forged signature getting more accurate with each attempt. In the margins, insurance call Monday. Check Dad's routine. Castor beans, how many? The internet search history told the whole story. December, life insurance policies. January, ricin extraction. February, untraceable poisons. March, lethal dosage by body weight. 4 months of researching how to kill me. Glenn was released from the hospital 2 days later. I drove him home. You holding up? He asked. Some days better than others. I keep thinking about that bourbon, how good it tasted before. He shrugged. But you saved my life by giving it to me instead of drinking it yourself." A week before trial, Detective Chen called. Brad's attorney wants a plea deal. Second-degree murder, 25 years with parole possibility. What's the alternative? Trial could get him life without parole if we win. If we lose, he walks free. We go to trial. The night before jury selection, Maria called. "Maddox, I'm ready to testify. It'll be hard, but I'm ready. How are you holding up?" "Scared, but relieved. The truth is finally coming out." She paused. "The kids are staying with my sister during the trial. They know Daddy made a very bad choice." After she hung up, I sat on my porch thinking about the boy who used to ask me endless questions about everything. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who'd spent months planning my death. Tomorrow, a jury would hear how my son methodically researched murder methods, practiced forging my signature, and showed no remorse when an innocent man nearly died in my place. Justice was coming, but it would destroy what remained of our family. The stars appeared in the darkening sky, and I wondered if Brad would see them from his jail cell, if he ever thought about the father he'd tried to kill, or the man who'd suffered in my place. Tomorrow, the world would know exactly what my son had become. The courtroom felt smaller than I'd expected. I sat behind the prosecution table, watching 12 strangers who would decide my son's fate. Brad entered in an orange jumpsuit, looking thinner. Our eyes met briefly. His were cold, calculating. He looked away first. District Attorney Martinez opened with devastating clarity. "This is a case about premeditated murder. For 4 months, the defendant researched poisons, practiced forging signatures, and planned his father's death. The only thing he didn't plan for was his father giving the poisoned bourbon away." She walked the jury through the timeline: Brad's debts, the forged insurance increase, the ricin research, the bourbon delivery. Each piece built an undeniable picture of calculated murder. Defense attorney Collins painted Brad as desperate, not murderous. My client made terrible choices, but desperation is not premeditation. The prosecution's case was methodical. Detective Chen testified about the laptop searches and forged documents. The handwriting expert confirmed Brad had practiced my signature extensively. The forensic expert explained ricin poisoning in clinical detail. Then Maria took the stand. She looked fragile in her dark dress, but her voice grew stronger as she testified. "He told me he was going to send his father a birthday gift that would teach him a lesson and solve our money problems. When I asked what he meant, he said it would make Maddox sick enough to need our help." "Did you understand he meant to seriously harm his father?" "I thought he meant make him sick, not kill him. He said it would be temporary, that Maddox would recover but realize he needed family support." Her voice cracked. "When Dad nearly died, I realized Brad had lied to me about everything." The defense tried to break her testimony, but Maria held firm. "I loved my husband, but I won't protect someone who nearly killed my father." When I testified, my legs felt unsteady. DA Martinez guided me through receiving the bourbon, giving it to Glenn, the investigation. "Do you believe your son intended to kill you?" I looked at Brad sitting motionless. The evidence speaks for itself. 4 months of planning, researching poisons, practicing my signature. That's premeditation, not desperation. The defense painted me as a cold father. "Didn't you abandon your son when he needed help?" "I helped him twice with gambling debts. When he came back for more money to gamble, I said no. That's responsible parenting, not grounds for murder." Glenn testified about the poisoning, his voice steady but hands shaking. "I trusted that bourbon because it came from Maddox. I nearly died because of that trust." The computer analyst walked through Brad's search history month by month, from life insurance policies in December to lethal ricin dosage in March. The progression from research to planning to execution was undeniable. After 3 days of testimony, both sides gave closing arguments. The prosecution summarized the mountain of evidence. The defense pleaded for mercy.
The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood with the verdict. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Brad's shoulders sagged slightly, but his expression remained unchanged. Maria sobbed quietly. I felt no satisfaction, just the hollow weight of a family destroyed. Justice had been served, but the cost would echo through all our lives forever. Judge Harrison called the court to order for sentencing 2 weeks after the guilty verdict. The courtroom was packed, reporters, family members, curious onlookers drawn to the spectacle of a son who'd tried to murder his father. Brad sat at the defense table in a pressed suit his attorney had provided, looking more like the young man I'd raised than the hollow-eyed defendant I'd seen throughout the trial. For a moment, I almost forgot what he'd done. "Bradley Steele," Judge Harrison began, her voice carrying the weight of finality. "You have been found guilty of attempted murder in the first degree, insurance fraud, and making criminal threats. Before I pass sentence, do you have anything to say?" Brad stood slowly, his lawyer beside him. For the first time since his arrest, he looked directly at me. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'm sorry for what I put everyone through." It wasn't the apology I'd hoped for. No acknowledgement of the months of planning, no recognition of Glenn's suffering, no real understanding of the magnitude of his betrayal. Just empty words that felt rehearsed. Judge Harrison wasn't impressed either. "Mr. Steele, your actions weren't the result of a moment of desperation. You spent 4 months researching, planning, and executing an attempt on your father's life. You forged documents, obtained deadly poison, and showed no remorse when an innocent man nearly died in his place." She paused, letting the words settle. "I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison without the possibility of parole for the first 15 years. You will also pay restitution for medical expenses and court costs." Brad's knees buckled slightly, but he remained standing. 25 years. He'd be in his late 50s when he got out, if he ever did. "Maria Steele," Judge Harrison continued, "please approach the bench." Maria stood on shaking legs, her attorney guiding her forward. She looked frail, older than her 32 years. "Mrs. Steele, you have pled guilty to accessory after the fact and obstruction of justice. While your cooperation with law enforcement has been noted, you were complicit in a plan that nearly resulted in 2 deaths." I held my breath, thinking about Maria's children waiting at home with their aunt. "I sentence you to 3 years suspended sentence, conditioned on successful completion of 200 hours of community service and 2 years of supervised probation. You are also ordered to undergo psychological counseling." Maria's relief was visible. She wouldn't go to prison. Her children wouldn't lose both parents. "Additionally," Judge Harrison added, "you are prohibited from any contact with Bradley Steele for the duration of his incarceration." The bailiff moved toward Brad with handcuffs. As they clicked around his wrists, he looked at me one more time. This time, there was something different in his eyes. Not the cold calculation I'd seen before, but something that might have been genuine regret. "Dad," he said as they led him toward the door. I almost responded, almost called out to him, but the words stuck in my throat. The boy I'd raised was gone. The man being led away in chains was a stranger who'd tried to kill me for money. Maria approached me as the courtroom emptied. "Maddox, I know you probably never want to see me again, but I need you to know, I'm going to make sure the kids know the truth about their father. Age-appropriate truth, but truth nonetheless. They deserve that," I said. "They also deserve to know their grandfather. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'd like them to have a relationship with you." I looked at this woman who'd been complicit in my attempted murder, but had ultimately chosen justice over loyalty. I'd like that too. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt the weight of finality. Brad would spend the next quarter-century behind bars. Maria would rebuild her life as a single mother. Glenn was recovering and would carry the scars of this betrayal forever. And I would go home to an empty house, knowing that justice had been served but that some wounds never fully heal. How are they handling everything? Better than you'd expect. Kids are resilient. Maria's been honest with them, age-appropriate honest. They know their father made a terrible mistake and has to face consequences. I thought about my grandchildren, growing up with the knowledge that their father had tried to murder their grandfather. What kind of burden was that to carry? 6 months after the trial, I found myself back on my porch swing, watching the same October light that had welcomed that poisoned bourbon into my life. The seasons had come full circle, but everything else had changed forever. Glenn stopped by most afternoons now, usually around 4 when the coffee was still warm and the day was winding down. Today he brought a chess set, something we'd never done before but had started during his recovery. "You're getting better at this," he said, moving his bishop to threaten my king. "I'm learning patience," I replied, studying the board. "Amazing what almost dying teaches you about taking your time." We played in comfortable silence, two men who'd survived something that should have killed us both. Glenn had made a full physical recovery, but I could see the way he sometimes paused before drinking anything, the slight hesitation that would probably never fully disappear. "Any word from Brad?" he asked, not looking up from the board. "A letter last month. He's in a medium security facility in Colorado Springs. Says he's taking college courses, working in the library." I moved my rook. He asked if I'd visit. "Are you going to?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to see him, to understand how the boy I raised became someone capable of—" I gestured vaguely. "But another part of me thinks that boy died a long time ago, and visiting won't bring him back." Glenn nodded. "Maria brings the kids by sometimes. They're good kids, Maddox. They ask about you." "The oldest one, Sarah, she asked me something last week," Glenn continued. "She wanted to know if people can change, if someone who does something really bad can become good again." "What did you tell her?" "That people can change, but they have to want to change, and they have to face what they've done honestly, not make excuses or blame others." We finished the game in silence. Glenn won, as usual.
As he packed up the chess pieces, he said, "You know what I've learned from all this?" "What's that?" "That trust isn't something you give once and it lasts forever. It's something you build every day, with every choice, every action. Brad broke that trust, not in one moment of desperation, but over months of calculated deception." After Glenn left, I walked through my house. The same house where I'd found that bourbon bottle, where I'd made the decision that saved my life and nearly cost his. The place felt different now. Not empty exactly, but quieter, more thoughtful. I pulled out a piece of paper and began writing a letter I'd been putting off for months. "Brad," I wrote, "I received your letter asking me to visit. I'm not ready for that yet, and I may never be. But I want you to know that I think about the boy you used to be, and I wonder every day where I went wrong as your father." I stopped writing, staring at those words. Then I crossed them out and started over. "Brad, I received your letter. I'm not ready to visit, but I want you to know that I hope prison gives you time to understand the magnitude of what you did. Not just to me, but to Glenn, to Maria, to your children who will grow up knowing their father tried to commit murder." I paused again, then continued. "If you truly want to change, if you truly want redemption, it starts with taking full responsibility for your choices. No excuses about debt or desperation. You planned to murder your father for money. That's the truth you have to live with." I signed it simply, Maddox Steele, and sealed the envelope. Tomorrow, I'd mail it. Tonight, I'd sit on this porch and remember the boy who used to catch fireflies in mason jars, who believed his father could fix anything, who never imagined that someday he'd try to kill the man who taught him to ride a bicycle. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some wounds don't heal completely. But justice had been served, truth had been told, and I was still alive to watch another sunset. That had to be enough.
This story offers profound lessons about betrayal and forgiveness. In stories of betrayal like this, we see that relationships can be broken by greed and despair. Yet God teaches us that even when we have reached a deep level of spirituality, we can still choose to forgive and seek healing. Stories of grandfathers like Maddox's show the importance of setting boundaries in love. Sometimes, saying no to your children is the truest form of love. God understands the pain of those who have faced betrayal from their own side. In real-life stories of betrayal, we learn that forgiving does not mean forgetting or ignoring the consequences. Maddox chose his job, but still held on to his desire to change. Stories of grandfathers like this remind us of unconditional love, even in the face of wounds that cannot be healed. Ultimately, these betrayal stories teach us that God has many types of trades that can be used as a source of strength to help others, as Maddox and Glenn found in situations where you have to really overcome challenges. Have you experienced similar feelings in your family? Share your thoughts on how to balance love and justice in difficult issues like this.
Thank you for listening to my story. If you find it interesting, please subscribe to the channel to continue following the upcoming stories.